So without further ado, I would simply request, sir, to kindly come and address all of you. The Honorable Chief Justice of the Gauhati High Court, Justice Ashutosh Kumar. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, students. I am really indebted to Dr. Pansari that he gave me this opportunity. In fact, he had asked me earlier also, but because of my pressing prior engagements, I could not come. But today is the day when I was asked to unveil the bust of Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar, as you all know, you have been law students. I think of all classes, you must be here from first year to final year. Is it a 5-year law course? Yes. So you would know who Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was, the principal architect of the Indian Constitution, one of the founding fathers of the modern Indian nation. Unveiling his bust is something like a reminder to all of us. More so for you students, because you have to grow big in life. You have to think. You have to transform the society. We have had our innings. It's a reminder to us also that we have to make choices which are fair. That is what B.R. Ambedkar was known as. You know, I'll be slightly brief today, but then some other time I'll be talking about B.R. Ambedkar's speeches, especially his speeches were known as one of the most, they are the best of the speeches in Parliament and in the Constituent Assembly debates. He has also written a book called The Grammar of Anarchy. And many of the speeches which you'll read in books, you'll find it to be extracted from there. Grammar of Anarchy. It has been edited by a very known scholar. So, before I get back to the most famous line what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said, I'll tell you that his life is a lesson in resilience. The person he was born in a Dalit family, Dalit Mahar family. His father was a Subedar. And he had faced discrimination in school, at home, in social surroundings. He was not allowed to sit in the classroom because he was untouchable. And then, he could not even take water from where the other students had their source of water because, again, he was a Dalit. All this would have crushed anybody. This deprivation, this social ostracization, this could have been, something which would not have allowed any person to come out of. But he was the one who turned this adversity into some kind of privilege. Because he did very well in studies, his results caught attention of Maharaja of Baroda, and he was granted a scholarship. He went to London School of Economics. Before that, he was in Columbia. And thereafter, he trotted the world and he earned all his degrees. But he was not satisfied. He came back to India. In India, again, with that high education, with that, the exposure which he had got abroad, he came back and he joined Baroda State Civil Service. But there also he faced discrimination because he was a Dalit. And this was the turning point in his life. Now, I am referring to only important facets of his life for you students, so that, later I'll be summarizing what lessons can you learn from him. Now, this was the time when he thought that he must take a plunge into politics. Not politics exactly, but then he took to teaching, law, and journalism, if you know. And within a short span of time, he became the voice of the Dalits. And this was the time when he spoke to people, spoke to his students, spoke to society at large, the civil society that time. They were not ready to hear him. But then, because of his clarity of thought, he spoke his mind out. And one of the first things that he addressed his students, and I would like to, as a humble student of law, I would like you to also have that. He said that I don't accept anything which is just because it is ancient. just because it is being followed. I would accept it when I ask questions, I ask uncomfortable questions, and if I get answers which are rooted in clarity, which are satisfying, which quenches my inquisitiveness, then only I shall accept any tradition of yours, any thought, any political theory, or for that matter any social theory, unless you satisfy me. So first thing which he told his students was that you must have an inquisitive mind. Now only because Dr. Pansari would tell you that you need to study, that is not important. Your Vice Chancellor would lead you by his experience, by his erudition. Your professors would tell you many things about the provisions of law. If you become lawyers, your Chief Justice will tell you how to go about. But then you must be satisfied what you're doing is correct and what you're being told is right. So the first thing which he said was that you ask questions. If you're aware of a book by a known author, I am forgetting his name, but he has written a book which is called Why. And the word why is not printed on the cover of the book. There is only a one question mark inscribed in gold on a green cover. And it takes you to, and there are various paragraphs there in that book which takes you to the life of Ambedkar also. The second thing which he said was that you ask questions, uncomfortable questions, but don't settle for any answer. No ready-made answer, no stock answers. The third, what he really impressed upon was that education is one of the strongest tools. It is like what and dabble. It is like block and tackle for you to rise high. So education you must earn, and there should be scientific education. Then he said that, well, you can't possibly be educated and live in silos. That will have no impact. You must know that society would change only if you have political power. And political power means that you must go back to the electorates. And then, lastly, he talked about the deprivations, the difficulties faced by Dalits, the ban on temple entry, inequality in marriages, bonded labors, so on and so forth. Every part of constitution that you read, right from the preamble to the directive principles of state policy, to fundamental rights, to chapter on trade and commerce, everything, you would find the reforming hand of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now, he tells you the insistence is on inclusiveness. The insistence is on plurality. These concepts are not esoteric concepts. These are not merely, flying words, high-flying words, highfalutin words, so to say. But then it has its meaning. It must be all-inclusive. Now, why I tell you this is that in your life, you would be required to make choices at all stages. And if you make a choice, and if the choice is fair for people, you would turn out to be more humane and an important adjunct of society. See, as I told you, such a life of adversity, we must take lessons from it. We would have been shattered. But here was a man who turned this into an advantage. And why was that? Because he had clear reasoning, clear thought. And then he was focused. I am always very prone to speaking about, taking metaphors from the sporting world, though not myself a good sports person, but then sporting metaphors would make you understand what he did and why it clicked. I always take the example of whenever somebody is low, or I felt low in my early life, because the profession is a very difficult one, and you found a big tunnel with no light. So those were the days, those were the times when I felt very distressed. And then this story of Roger Bannister. I don't know how many of you would know or remember his name. Roger Bannister was the person who is known in the world as having run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Now this was the benchmark. Before him, in 1945, there was a Swedish athlete called Gunder Haig. He was the person who had competed, he had ran for a mile in about 4 minutes. And therefore the doctors, the athletes, the sports persons, they all had set that benchmark that this is only humanly possible. Less than 4 minutes, a human being without steroids, without other aids, he cannot walk a mile. Roger Bannister was a doctor by profession and an athlete as well. Now he was not ready to accept this mental barrier. He always told his coaches that, look, this is not a physiological barrier. It's a mental barrier. Let me try. And he tried, and in less than 10 years, he was able to run a mile in 3 minutes, less than 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 1.4 seconds. And that was the point when the world record was smashed. What happened thereafter? It was not only a personal victory of Roger Bannister. The mental barrier was broken, and it opened the floodgates. All these people who had thought that this barrier is never going to be broken, they were proved wrong. And thereafter, 16 persons walked a mile, ran a mile in less than 3 minutes, in less than 4 minutes. I mean, of course, nobody broke the benchmark set by Roger Bannister. Once when people asked him that, what made you run so fast? He said, do you think that I wore the top quality shoes? I did, but then it was not one of the factors. Did I get a special training? No. Something happened. Was it rigged? No, not at all. Not those days. Sporting, those days were not rigged like you hear instances today. So he said that I never kept those invisible fences in my mind. But Robin Sharma, you have heard of Robin Sharma, a writer of great fame who has written, the name is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's a thin book. Must get hold of that book. All of you students, you have to go. Learning law is all right, because these are, sterile statutes. But unless you have a wide vision, and vision can only have when you look outwards, and your window to the world would be books only. You can't just travel. You have to have some idea. So read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. So Robin Sharma says that those invisible fences which people keep in their minds, that is what stops them. Ambedkar, in no uncertain words, he told his students and his followers that please step aside your mental barrier. When he had started that Mahad agitation, everybody told him that this is not going to succeed. Those were the times when the social roots and practices were deeply entrenched. He was a trailblazer and he was afraid. But then he had this in mind that one day he has to transform the country. He has to shape the landscape of the country. And he was not happy with it. The feelings inside him of deprivation, of obloquy and of indignities hurled upon him, it deeply hurt him. And he did not want this to happen to any other person with such deprivation. So this is an example for you. When you become a lawyer, you see a person being deprived of his rights and entitlements. You are not only his torchbearer, his rescuer, but you adopt such ways that your efforts help many, and it brings smile on faces. Now I'm not being pedantic, no philosophical things. These are small little lessons that we learn. Now, I'll tell you about another personality again from the world of sports. I don't know how good is your sports faculty here. But then this time I expect that the name that I would take would echo some familiarity. This is Tyrone Boggs. Has anyone heard of it? No, I'll tell you. Tyrone Boggs was shorter than me. He was 5 feet 3 inches. And those were the days when the game of basketball was only for tall men. And if you have heard of NBA, National Basketball Association, one of the best, basketball league located in US and Canada. It was known for very high level of play, and they had the entertainment-driven style of playing. It was very different, world over. Great international fan base. So it had, the basketball players like Michael Jordan, if you have heard. He was a great sensation of his times in late 50s and 60s. LeBron James, Stephen Curry, they were the persons, all above 6.5 feet. And they were great players. Now this man, Tyrone Boggs, was 5 feet 3 inches. 5 feet 3 inches. And he was very good in the technique of basketball. Everybody said that whatever he does, he is never going to make it to NBA. Because, only because of his height, he would be stopped. But then this man never, believed those naysayers and skeptics. He knew that he is going to make it big. And what he did was, he came from Baltimore. And in Baltimore, he practiced slam dunks by standing on, upturned milk crates. And he used to practice smashing. And he became so good at it that by the time he was 28, he joined NBA and he became one of the most sensational players. Now, why this happened? Sometimes later when people asked him, sports journalists, what made you do this with such short height? You would have to jump too high in the air to get to the basket. Now he says that I never believed that my height could be my nemesis. And I always believed in myself. Now this is another thing which Ambedkar's life tells you. If you don't believe in yourself, perhaps things will not come to you in this manner. Now you must believe in yourself. You must avoid, any pessimistic feeling. You must ignore these skeptics who would come in large measure, in great numbers in your life as you grow old, as you grow big, as you enter the life as a professional, as a serviceman, as a draftsman, or whichever vocation you like to choose. These are two great sports persons about whom I always love to tell my students. Now getting back to, this was some kind of a digression. Now let me come back to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, with this kind of an attitude, with his learning, he was the person, he was the first law minister, as Rakhi told you. He resigned from the cabinet on a simple issue. There was a Hindu code bill. And Hindu code bill, according to him, was very restrictive. It did not care for women's rights, the maternity rights, the equal right to property. So he resigned from the cabinet and said that no, he will be opposing Hindu code bill. Look at his commitment. Those were the days. Then because of him, his was not only drafting of the constitution, but it went beyond labor rights. Would you believe that he was the person who introduced this concept of maternity leaves for women, the equality clause, and so many things which you now think is ingrained in your constitution, ingrained in the society, ingrained in social life, without which you can't do. These were all, things which he thought 100 years ago. And why was that? Coming from such a less privileged family. Because he believed in himself, he treated education as the strongest tool for getting to that position. And why was that position? Not for earning money, not for earning great name, but for transforming the society which he thought was not good. So this is the day, on 26th of November every year we celebrate Constitution Day. My practices too, which I would like to introduce in Gauhati High Court, I would recite the preamble and I would ask everybody to repeat that. I shall not do it today. I don't have a copy of the Constitution here right for me. But then we celebrate Ambedkar along with the Constitution. And why is this? Because he is an integral part of the Constitution. You would do better by reading more about the life of Dr. Ambedkar and many other architects of the Constitution. And if you happen to, go to the library, and there is a person called M.V. Piley. He has compiled all the Constituent Assembly debates. Those are interesting debates. You would not find such kind of debates. Only 299 people indirectly elected. And those were the people who came from far remote corners of the country. Women, many of whom were not very well educated, but they had the practical wisdom. And they could translate that wisdom into this great Constitution, the living document, the extraordinary document that you read, which is the basis of all laws, the mother of all laws. So, as we celebrate the unveiling of the bust of Dr. Ambedkar, we must remember him in all walks of our lives, and let us have an informed choice every time. When you are in a classroom, you should not fear in asking questions. If you are in a courtroom, don't fear asking the judge, why is this judgment being given when the law is otherwise? And unless you are satisfied, don't settle for anything. So my students, it was wonderful talking to you. It was just a monologue. Sometime else, when I have some more time, I would be entering into some kind of interaction with you, where you will be free to ask questions, and I'll be absolutely delighted to quench your thirst if at all I can. Thank you so much. Thank you.